Beginning. The decree arrived stamped in red alloy and imperial fire code, its meaning unmistakable even before Aaron Solis finished reading it. By order of the Concord Authority, he was to be bound in marriage to a warrior of the cartoon clans, the so-called barbarians of the outer systems. The union was not for love or even diplomacy in the traditional sense, but for survival. The cartoon controlled the plasma corridors that fed half the frontier colonies. They were powerful, proud, and increasingly restless. Aaron was many things: a strategist, a scholar of interstellar law, a decorated officer whose victories had come from patience and precision rather than brute force. He was not a barbarian husband. "You can't be serious," he said quietly, staring at the holographic seal hovering above his desk. The envoy across from him did not flinch. "You were chosen because you were expendable in the right way," she replied. "Important enough to matter. Flexible enough to be sacrificed." Aaron closed his eyes. The cartoon did not recognize treaties the way the Concord did. They recognized strength. A marriage bond, ancient and brutal by civilized standards, was their way of testing whether the Concord still deserved access to their territory. If Aaron failed, the war that followed would consume entire systems. If he succeeded, no one knew. 3 weeks later, Aaron stood beneath an alien sky the color of burning copper. The trial plains of Karkin stretched endlessly around him. Black stone, jagged cliffs, and a low thunder of distant storms. Clan banners snapped violently in the wind, marked with sigils of conquest and fire. At the center of the plains stood Kayla Vorn, the woman he had been commanded to call his wife. She was taller than him by half a head, her body forged by combat and survival. Bronze-scarred skin bore ritual markings that told stories Aaron could not read. Her armor was minimal, designed for movement rather than protection, and a massive blade strapped to her back hummed faintly with contained energy. Kayla's eyes burned with contempt as she looked at him. "So this is the Concord's offering," she said. A soft-handed thinker. Aaron straightened, refusing to shrink. "I am here to honor the binding." She laughed, a harsh, fearless sound. "You may wear the title," she replied, "but you are not my husband." The clan elders watched closely. "In cartoon law," Kayla continued, stepping closer, "a bond is only real when earned. You have not earned me." Aaron felt every eye on him as she turned away. The marriage was sealed by ritual that night, but Kayla never came to his quarters. Middle. Life among the cartoon was a study in constant pressure. Aaron learned quickly that survival here was not about comfort, but endurance. The clans valued action over words, scars over credentials. Every morning began with combat drills. Every evening ended with stories of battle and loss, spoken openly around roaring fires. Kayla ignored him completely. When they passed each other in the stronghold corridors, she treated him as if he were invisible. When others mocked him openly, she did nothing to stop them. When he was challenged by lesser warriors looking to prove dominance, she watched from a distance, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Aaron lost those early fights, not catastrophically, but decisively. He relied too much on technique, too much on restraint. The cartoon fought with ferocity that ignored pain and reveled in momentum. Bruised and bloodied, Aaron returned each night to his quarters, his confidence eroding. The Concord expected him to endure. Kayla expected him to fail. But Aaron did not leave. Instead, he began to observe. He studied the rhythm of the clan's combat, the way warriors shifted weight before striking, how Kayla herself fought, not wildly, but with terrifying clarity. Her strength was not just physical. It was instinct refined through years of survival. One night, after a particularly brutal training bout, Arn approached Rethka, an elder weapons master. "Teach me," Arn said. Rethka tilted her head. "You're not built like us." "No," Arn agreed, "but I learned faster." Something in his tone made her pause. From that night on, Arn trained relentlessly. He adapted Concord tactics to cartoon brutality. He learned to fight dirty when necessary, to accept pain without letting it control him. He stopped trying to overpower his opponents and instead began to outthink them in the midst of chaos. Weeks passed, then months. Kayla began to notice. She saw him standing his ground longer, taking hits without retreat, winning small, ugly victories against warriors who had once humiliated him. Still, she did not acknowledge him until the challenge came. Under cartoon law, a bonded pair could not truly be recognized unless the bond was tested in right combat, a formal duel witnessed by the entire clan. Traditionally, it was the barbarian spouse who issued the challenge. Kayla stood before the elders, her voice echoing across the stone amphitheater. "I challenge the Concord man," she declared, "not to kill, but to decide whether he has the right to stand beside me." Arn felt the weight of the moment settle over him. This was not a duel for pride. This was a duel for existence. Ending. The arena was carved directly into the black stone of the plains, its surface scarred by generations of battles that had shaped the cartoon identity. Arn stepped onto the field wearing armor he had earned, not been given. It bore marks of past defeats and hard-won victories alike. Kayla entered opposite him, blade drawn, eyes burning with anticipation rather than disdain. "This ends today," she said. "Yes," Arn replied. "It does." The signal sounded. Kayla attacked first, a storm of force and precision. Arn barely held his ground, every movement tested to its limit. The crowd roared as blades clashed and sparks flew. Kayla was faster, stronger, but Arn was ready. He stopped retreating. He countered, redirected, used her momentum against her. Each exchange pushed them closer to exhaustion, closer to the truth neither had spoken aloud. Kayla fought harder, sensing the shift. Arn endured. When the final clash came, it was not a display of raw dominance, but of balance. Arn disarming her with a maneuver that required perfect timing and absolute commitment. Kayla hit the ground, blade skidding across the stone. Silence fell. Arn stood over her, breathing hard, offering a hand instead of a finishing strike. Kayla stared at him. Then, slowly she laughed. Not mockingly, proudly. "You did not break me," she said, taking his hand and rising. "You stood with me." She turned to the clan, raising their joined hands. "The bond is earned." The elders struck their staffs in approval. In the months that followed, Arn and Kayla forged something neither had expected. Not dominance, not submission, but partnership. She taught him the heart of the cartoon. He taught her the strength of patience and foresight. Together, they became more than symbols. They became leaders. And when the Concord and the clans finally stood on the same side of history, it was not because of fear or force, but because a barbarian warrior and a quiet strategist had proven that strength took many forms, and love sometimes began with defiance.